than a cake made of regular. Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the Black Carnivore live stream. I am really excited to be here tonight to talk to you guys. So, if you were here on Tuesday, or well, no, not Tuesday, last night, you will have watched the interview I did with Dr. Rimka, or the first part of it. And I actually wanted to go over some of it and like replay. There were a few spots that I wanted to replay and discuss with you all tonight. So I'm gonna do that, but I need a favor from you all. I need to know that my sound is working and that you can hear everything. So if you were here, can you give me a thumbs up in the chat if you could hear the sound of the video that was playing, or I'm gonna play it again right now. I mean, the oxalates and low. So tell me if you can hear that, and we'll go from there. There we go. So let's see. Hey, Anna, welcome. It's so good to see you. Anne Williams, welcome. And Paulette, yes, ready for part two. I too am looking forward to it. So that'll be next Tuesday. Hey, Mommy Does Keto, welcome. Hey, Marianne. Hi, Heather. Good to see you. Hi, Paulette. Good to see you too. Iggy Six Figures, welcome. Okay, sound is working. Great. I am really glad to hear that. I'm trying something new, so I just wasn't sure how it was going to work out. Hey, Miss Taby, it's good to see you. Okay, so yeah, let me just dive in and play the clip. Angela G, hey, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. Mr. Bogglesworth, welcome! Yay! I'm so glad you're here. We had a good stream yesterday, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm glad that I'm able to bring this to you. And everybody who's here, please hit the like button, and subscribe. All of that really helps to spread this message and make sure that we can let more people know about how awesome this way of eating is, and kind of push back against the plant-based machine that is that's going on right now. Thanks, Heather. I'm so glad you enjoyed it last night. Hey, I'm so glad you are here, but yeah, just no problem. Just try to keep up. Yeah, hey, Michelle, welcome. It's so good to see you. Portia, hey, wow, everybody is just rolling in. This is really awesome. Okay, so let me start. Let me go ahead and press play. Flour is better than a cake made of regular flour. I mean, the oxalates load in one is going to be higher than the other.
I would, because of what gluten and gliadin in general, I think those are worse poisons. And I think because the system, there's so much glyphosate in there, and because of so much autism spectrum disorder, and that destroys those guts. It'll make that kid, they can start stimming within a few hours, and the almond won't do that. So okay. Yeah, I do think there's a difference for especially children with attention deficit, spectrum disorders. You'll see a now, should they eat that every day? No, but it won't impact them neurologically the same as gluten.
And how about for the adult who eats the whole cake every day? So I actually thought that was a really, really interesting point that really hadn't occurred to me before, that that there would be a sort of a different neurological impact from eating almond flour versus regular flour. And I wondered if you all had noticed the same deal. From the conversation that we had with Sally Norton a couple of weeks ago, I realized how detrimental oxalates can be, but it's interesting. And I probably, I kind of wish I had asked her the same question about, the effect of a cake made from almond flour versus a cake made from wheat flour. But I kind of thought that was really interesting. And I wondered if you all had seen a similar effect. I have to say that when I had Lily's chocolate that's made from, I think it's made from stevia, and it doesn't have, regular sugar in it, I definitely did notice a different physiological effect. Like I didn't get the same. I think I've said this before that it just, to me, it tasted like chocolate, but it didn't have the same joy that chocolate has. And I think for me, like the sugar, it just hits whatever that, reward pathway is in my brain, and stevia doesn't. And so when I ate the chocolate made from stevia, like it was chocolate, but it didn't do it. Whatever chocolate does, it didn't do it. And I thought that was really interesting. So I wonder if something similar, is kind of happening with the wheat flour versus almond flour. So, you all tell me if you feel like you've had that same experience, or, if you've noticed a difference with almond flour and regular flour. And I wonder, for those of you who came, like from keto and then into carnivore, did you do a lot of experimenting with the almond flour and other kind of, I don't know, I guess there's like coconut aminos and maybe coconut flour. If you had tried any of those things, and what was, what was the effect like for you? I'm really curious to know because I think it's important to kind of think through that kind of stuff. And, for beginners who are sort of thinking about whether to include some of those things, to know, whether that's okay. Now, I get a lot of people asking me if they can have coconut water, coconut aminos, or the sugar and whatnot. And, I mean, of course, I say, we're not eating from the plant kingdom. So, if you want to go by those rules, no. But, I don't know whether whether there's a real effect or not. Like, for some of these things, you just have to not have it and kind of see, what the effects are. So let me know if you could all hear that video, though. I don't want to continue if you can't hear it. So definitely speak up. Okay, so let me move on to the next spot that I thought was interesting. Michelle says almond flour puts me to sleep just like white flour. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah, that may just be a too much carbs thing. I don't know. Heather G says, of course, I prefer regular flour. The nut flours cause allergic reactions. Yeah. And I mean, that was kind of why in the beginning I chose not to have the nut flours, because I was concerned that, having that much flour, I mean, essentially that's having like a ton of nuts. And it just made me think, I'm allergic to everything. If I do this, like, it might just be that much more, allergic response that I have to deal with. So I was, pretty concerned about that. And let's see, says, I find myself confounded about both flours. My family isn't keto or carnivore except my husband. I use both, but I would love for them to be young enough to push into mother's choice. Yeah, well, unfortunately, you at a certain point, there's, you kind of lose control with the food with kids. But okay, so that's good to pay attention to. Okay, let me go to my next clip that I really liked. And let me know if you like this format of video. I thought that, she said so many things that, people you all in the audience and me felt, really inspired by or interested in. And there were a number of things that she said that I wanted to, to follow and continue the discussion on, but I knew that we would like never finish the interview if I followed every rabbit hole. But hopefully, I can have her back and I can pursue some of those things, because I thought there was a lot of interesting stuff there that, we never got to talk about. Yeah, says that your choice would be neither flour. Yeah. And Janae, yeah, almond flour is so full of phytates it will throw off your minerals. I used to get Charlie horse. Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine. So, okay. Yeah, let me get to the next clip. Okay. Okay, here we go. And Anna says, I see all these recipes for low carb replacements, and my lazy ass goes, actually, waiting 12 minutes for my steak is enough work, laughing out loud. I can't with all the work. Steak is too good. Yeah, well, that's true. Some people express their, I guess, their artistry through cooking, so they're willing to do that. But yeah, some of it's a bit much for me. Yeah. And Heather, you like being able to discuss the interviews afterwards. Good. Um, Iggy6, I can't remember the last time I ate cake. Ditto. Thank God. Ditto and thank God. Okay, let's listen to this next clip.
So yeah, but all of those are relatively animal based. They should be. They should. I don't care. Any of those can be healthy as long as you're hitting your protein. So to me, we're prioritizing protein. I want at a bare minimum 0.8 gram per kilogram body mass up to 1.5 depending, but in general a target range for people is if you have a gram of protein a day for what you want to weigh. You want to weigh 125 pounds, you need to eat 125 grams of protein. You want to, if you're hitting, you want to weigh, so if you're 300 pounds and you want to be 150, you need to eat 150 grams of protein. You need to eat for what you want to be, and you'll start to lose weight. If you're trying to gain weight, right? You're in the gym. My son wants to gain more muscle, build testosterone. I'm like, what matters most is protein. Hit protein, hit protein. I want them to eat all the protein on their plate first. I don't care where I am. Eat every piece of that animal, and the protein better be animal protein. I'm sorry, I don't count plant protein. Take your pea protein and shove it down a toilet somewhere. So that's, I don't, none of that counts to me when I'm tracking protein for them. That's a carb. So eat all of the protein. Then you can, if you want to have any vegetable carbs, and carbs I call like low carbs, non-starchy things. And then I call sugars starches and fruits.
Okay. So I love that. It was really helpful to hear her focus on the protein like that. And it's nice that there's this, swing back towards protein. Because I think in the beginning, when I first started keto, it was definitely like make sure you're eating a good enough amount of protein, and don't skimp on that. And then it kind of swung the other way where it was like eat super low protein and get that fat up, and drink your fat, eat your fat, figure out how to get the fat. And and that was kind of hard. So it's really nice that there is this swing back towards getting enough protein. And although to hear her tell it, like, it's still, there's a little part of me that's like, wow, that is a lot of protein. But then I think, why think that? Like 2 pounds of ground beef is like 160 grams of protein. And that's what that's about where I end up. So why do I feel like that's too much? So, it's really helpful to hear her say that. And, it helps me to stay focused. Um, so let's see. Yeah, Mommy Does Keto said that almond flour makes you gassy. Yeah, I would think so. It certainly did for me. Um, so Portia says, yeah, I need 160 grams of protein a day, especially because I eat 1 or 2 meals. So I wonder, Portia, as you're trying to get that 160 grams of protein a day, how do you fit that into one meal? Like 2 meals I get, like I can do a pound of meat in a sitting, but I don't think I can do 2 pounds of meat in a sitting. So I wonder how you do that. And let's see, Age Grace Style. I love her protein count. It means I need to eat more steak. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, and you agree on the pea protein, Age. Yeah, absolutely. I used to use a pea protein as well because back when I was, well, even before I was doing keto, it just was a helpful breakfast, and I couldn't, whey protein always upset my stomach. Casein protein powders always upset my stomach, and so I found the pea protein, and that was the only thing that didn't really upset my stomach. So, so I used to use that because it was like an easy, quick breakfast, and it would help me, stay satisfied until lunch. I'm so glad I'm off of that. But I did that for years, having a protein shake for breakfast. Um, so silly, I mean, I hate to think that I was substituting, some factory produced thing instead of like actual food. So there you go. April Ray says, definitely hard to get my protein in because I'm just not hungry. Lately, one steak would last me all day. Um, yeah, I don't, that's definitely something to look at. It might be, it's definitely worth, I think, tracking your food for a little while just to get a sense of what you're actually eating. It's not something you have to do forever, but it can give you some good information. Um, so I don't know how big that steak is. I mean, certainly when I buy steak at like at Whole Foods, it's like a 2 pound, it's a 2 pound cut, or it's pretty thick, piece of steak. It's not a little thin one. So who knows? Maybe, maybe with that one steak, you're actually getting a lot of protein in. So, definitely pay attention to that though. And so a 140 is your goal weight, so 140 grams. I'm not sure quite what that is, but definitely, make sure that you're getting that. Um, Portia's asking exactly like how many grams is a ribeye. I think it depends. I mean, I think it's important not to get too hung up, with the actual numbers because, of course, whenever you're looking something up in MyFitnessPal, like that's an average of that type of food, but like, no one can tell you exactly what's in the steak that is on your plate without like, taking it to a lab. So depending on how lean or how trimmed your ribeye is, that's going to certainly affect, the fat to protein ratio and the calories and so on. But yeah, if you're getting a big ribeye that's like 2 inches thick, that is, that's I mean, when I get my bone-in ones from Whole Foods, like those are usually 2.5 pounds. So, the bone, of course, is some of the weight, but yeah, that can be a 2 pound meal right there. So it might be fine. And a ribeye is more fat, so it's going to have less protein. So, you kind of judge that. If you're eating super fatty meat, then you may need to eat more in order to get enough of the lean. Um, and says I average 1 to 2 pounds a day with Swiss cheese and butter. So yeah, I think that Dr. Rimka would probably say that you probably need more lean because I think she did say I don't think I played it in this quote, but I did hear her say she really doesn't want people to be getting their protein from cheese. It's really got to be like from meat, and cheese is sort of if you can tolerate it, it's just this, a nice like uh, side or something to give flavor and texture and taste to the meal, but it's not like the substance of the meal. So, so you want to make sure that you're getting enough meat. That's what she seemed to be saying. And Portia says, how much protein is in a serving of ground beef with some eggs? Seems like I would need to eat more. Well, I think ground beef has like maybe 18 or 20 grams of protein for a 4 ounce serving. So if you're getting, well, I was actually looking earlier today at 85/15, 85% fat, 15% lean ground beef. And that was, for 2 pounds, that was 160 grams of protein. And then eggs have about 7 or 8 grams of protein per egg. So, so there you go. So it's not that much, So whenever I see people eating like 2 scrambled eggs and 2 slices of bacon for breakfast, even though that seems like kind of normal, if you are a carnivore, that's actually not that much food. The egg, you're really only getting like 14 ounces or 14 grams of protein. And if you, compare that to a piece of meat, that's like saying you sat down and ate, 2 ounces of meat, which is really not a lot, 2 or 3 ounces of meat. It's not a lot. So, I think that when I see people eating scrambled eggs and bacon, I think, you want to have like a scrambled eggs, a piece of bacon, and a hamburger, or scrambled eggs and a piece of steak. You need something a little bit more substantial. Although some people say they find eggs to be totally filling and totally delicious and blah, blah, blah. Frankly, I don't find eggs to be that filling. I mean, I find them to be tasty and delicious, but if I'm just going to have, two scrambled eggs and two slices of bacon, like that's a nice snack, but that's not going to get me all day. Um, so there you go. So let's see. Heather says it's good to know that 2 pounds is approximately 160 grams. Yeah. Portia says uh, well, I don't quite understand the question. So you're trying to see how you can get the 160 grams. Yeah. So, well, 2 pounds of ground beef, you'd have to, I don't know the numbers for a ribeye. So you just have to look that up in MyFitnessPal or something. But I'm going to suspect it's got less protein, so you would need to eat more in order to get to that 160 number because it's got more fat. Um, and then says in an OMAD, I only average a little more than a pound and add eggs. Yeah. So I think that that's why some people say they don't favor people doing OMAD because it can be hard to get in all of the nutrients that you need. But if you feel like you're doing it, you're, comfortable with your energy level, how, your weight, and your health, then, like, keep doing it. But if you're feeling like maybe you're tired or you have more cravings or you're kind of hungry, it might be that you just need to eat a little bit more food. I don't know. Anna says 500 grams of steak has 75 grams of fat and 137 grams of protein, 1,200 calories. Some days it's closer to 750 grams, but I like that ratio of protein to fat. Excellent. It's great that you were able to identify that. So I think 500 grams of steak is like 14 ounces for us Americans. So just under a pound. Um, although that doesn't, well, yeah, so that's a leaner, definitely a leaner steak, something more along the lines of like a New York strip than a ribeye, because a ribeye is a lot fattier. So, okay. Hey, large picture, welcome. It's good to see you. Let's see. Says you have to remember that she is acting as a practitioner and coach to people needing healing and usually just beginning. More protein is needed in the beginning for all the nutrients, nutrient deficiencies, cravings, etc. Yeah, that's actually a great point, and I hadn't really thought about that. But yeah, certainly when you are healing, whether it's from surgery or you've been restricting for a long time, or you've got other issues going on, you're going to be hungrier, or you're going to need more nutrients. And so, you might be hungrier, you might need more fat. Definitely, if there's brain stuff going on, you need more fat. That's going to help with healing. And later on, maybe you don't need as much. Although it is important to remember, the older we get, the more protein we need. I've definitely, I've read about how older people actually don't use protein as efficiently as younger people. So you're going to need more protein than you did at 25. There's probably never going to be a time when you need very much less protein. How much more you need, I guess that's the question. So, that's something to pay attention to. Anne was saying, I was saying 140 pounds goal weight, so I need 140 grams of protein. Yeah, that's what she's saying. April says, are eggs okay? Yes, eggs are fine. I'm not saying don't eat eggs. I'm just saying they're not enough for me. And I think probably for most adult people, 2 scrambled eggs and 2 slices of bacon is not really enough for breakfast. But I'd love to hear from you. If you feel like it is enough, definitely let me know. I'm very curious about that because I do see people that eat that, and in the beginning, especially, I see people eat that But I think, partly that is also this fear of eating more, and being afraid to eat more. So, so it kind of takes time to loosen up and be willing to eat more. Um, Sonia, I thoroughly enjoyed the interview. Love seeing people of color embracing carnivore lifestyle. Yeah, absolutely. That was a great part, such a long conversation we had on the veganism. Says the cheese is a flavor accent to help eat the meat. Yeah, well, cheese is an amazing flavor accent. I think everybody would agree with you on that. Um, and Mandel says, ever experience abdominal discomfort on the left when having a sad day before you learn to be a devout carnivore? No, no debilitating pain, but a body alarm. Hmm. Well, I definitely had, discomfort from eating the sad diet. Um, if it's on a particular side, I mean, I guess I would wonder about whether, there's something specific going on, but all of that goes once you go carnivore. So that is a delight. That is definitely a delight. But one-sided pain, can be an indication that something specific is going on. So if you're having a lot of one-sided pain, I would definitely check that out with a doctor. So Paulette says I'll have to re-listen to understand the protein count weight. Uh, yeah, so she's just saying if whatever is the weight, the ultimate weight that you want to be, that's the number of grams of protein that you need to eat in order to make sure that you're getting enough. And I think this is an important point to remember is that protein is not uh, I mean, it's relative to your muscle, but not to your weight. And so, let's say you're trying to lose weight, how much fat you eat should go up or down depending on, where you are in that cycle, how much weight you're trying to lose, and all of that. But your protein needs are never, they don't change. Whatever your lean body mass is, whatever your lean body mass that you want to have, that's not going to change. You always need to, provide enough protein to sustain that. So what she's saying is, whatever, weight, ultimate weight that you want to be, like that's how much protein you need to sustain the lean body mass that's associated with that weight. Um, so, if you are um, if you're more active, maybe you need to eat more fat so that you have enough calories, but it doesn't mean that you necessarily need to eat more protein. Just, to support the muscle mass at that size, there's just a certain amount of protein that you need. Now, there is a lot of opinions about how much protein we need. And so, you have some people who are saying, 1 gram for, the body weight you want to be. And other people are saying, having you calculate what your lean body mass is, and then multiply that by anywhere from, 0.75 to 2 grams, to two, to get that number of grams. So there's a lot of complicated ways that people look at it. But I think it really varies. You as long I don't know. It seems to me as long as you're getting over 100 grams of protein, you're going to be okay. The World Health Organization has outlined what the minimum amount of protein is that you need in order to sustain life, but the minimum is not necessarily what is ideal. So, so that's why there is this wide range from a very low point to a very high point. And so the World Health Organization says, a woman who's like 5'4", and of a normal or average weight, it can have as little as like 45 grams of protein, and that's enough. So you see that there's a pretty wide spectrum there. So you know some people seem to do better much higher, and that's kind of what the research, the doctors who are recommending the higher numbers, that's where they're coming from the the research on protein. So let's see. I went way off there on a tangent. Age gray style says steak and eggs. Yum. Eggs are alone are not enough. Yeah. Um, Mandel says, seems to me that the recommended daily allowance for protein and fiber are pulled from a bull's butt. We know sad is bad, no way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Paulette, please, everybody, hit the like button. That will really help us a lot. And thank you all for being here. I'm, really enjoying the opportunity to talk to you. So let's see. Toya says, hey, welcome. Um, and Mandel says, no way to get the recommendation of protein on the SAD diet. Have to eat an uncomfortable amount on carnivore, and plant protein is not good. Um, yeah, on the SAD diet, it is. I mean, I do remember reading Ted Naiman's book on the protein leverage hypothesis. I think that's protein to energy leverage hypothesis, or it was something like that. But anyway, he was saying that there's a certain amount of protein that we need, and if we aren't getting it, we're going to keep eating until we satisfy it. And so that is part of why people on the standard American diet also are overeating, because they're not getting enough protein, or they're eating to get to that point. So, he is saying that people on the standard American diet do eventually get, the amount of protein they need, but that's because they're eating a tremendous amount of calories. So I don't know. I mean, I think I probably was on the standard American diet, hitting somewhere between 80 and 100 grams of protein every day. On keto, I was hitting between 80 and 100 grams of protein. And now, of course, I'm, closer to 150 or even above. So I, probably. I mean, if you have the ability to get the food, then I think that you probably hit a good range for protein. Um, but if you don't have the ability to purchase more food, or if you don't have access to more food and you don't have access to real food, then yeah, you could very well be limited. And that limitation could just mean that, you're ordering Cheetos and ramen noodles and whatnot and getting a ton of calories and still not getting the protein. Anna says 500 grams is about 1.1 pounds, but yes, it is round steak. We call it rump. But some days it's more like 750 grams, which is about 1.6 pounds. Yeah, so Anna, I think the round steak is leaner, and that's why you're getting so much protein in it. So that's great. No problem there. Age Grace Style says, I realize in seeing my dad that many older people don't get enough protein because meats are harder to chew and may have less teeth. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of obstacles that people deal with, and yeah, the teeth is a big one. Oh God, I hope to keep all my teeth. I saw my parents struggle so much, and this is a terrible story, but my dad, right at the beginning of quarantine, did something and his dentures broke, and it wasn't like something that could just be glued back together or fixed. Like he had to, get like his whole mouth fitted and get like a new pair altogether. But of course, this is at the beginning of quarantine. The dentists were closed. There was no, sense of when he was going to be able to do this, and when the factory that actually manufactures the denture was going to be able to be open and do this. And so basically, until about maybe 6 weeks ago, he was pureeing his food in a blender and drinking it, which I was just like, oh. I mean, if there were any other circumstances, I would have made sure that that could have been rectified. But the world was what it was, and it just wasn't possible. But I was like, salad, rice, beans, blended up in a smoothie and drinking it. Like, I cannot think of a worse or more gross thing. So I don't know. I felt really bad for him. And to go more than a year like that, I was just like, oh my God. So I really, really, really hope that I hold on to my teeth, because that's a big deal. Yeah. Let's see. Anna says, I have dentures and meat is no problem. Good. Yes, you have good dentures. I don't know. My parents just always, I don't know. I mean, one time my mom called me and she was all upset because she said her dentures fell out on the highway. And I was like, Oh my God, did you have an accident? Like, I couldn't imagine what could have occurred that would, thrust her dentures from out of her mouth. And yet she would still be able to call me and be okay. And I was like, what happened? And so she said, I don't know. She was like trying to rinse them out the window while driving down the highway and, of course, dropped them. It's just like, I don't even know what to say. I mean, this is the craziest thing I ever heard. So yeah, and it sounds like your dentures are doing great. Good job. So glad for you. Okay, Paulette, yes. Yeah, making some kind of cream soup is, that can be tasty. Um, and Mandel, yes, this video is going to be up for posterity, so check it out. Um, yes, sad is bad for sure. And age great style. Your dad has passed, but yeah, he lived to be 97. That's awesome. I, hope to definitely make it that long. So, yeah. And Mr. Bogglesworth, oh my God, you put pizza in a blender once because of dental surgery. Oh, wow, that really does not sound appealing. So, but please tell me, put it in the chat. Did you like it? How did that work out for you? Um, yes, yeah, 97 is an amazing age to reach, and I hope to. I hope to. Um, Heather, I don't know which story you're laughing at. If it's my mom dropping her dentures out in the highway, I think it's okay to laugh. And part of me was like, you get what you deserve. Like, why are you hanging your teeth out the window when you're driving 60 miles an hour? Like, those are just not two things that should go together. So I don't know. Um, So Anna says, I also had all my teeth out just before lockdown and ended up with over 6 months with just gums. I just had to slow cook my meat soft veggies. Yeah, I'm so sorry. That really was, that must have been a struggle. Yeah, but soft meat and soft veggies will, that'll do it. Paulette, yeah, dentures rinse on the highway. Mandel, corned beef, deviled meat, frying egg yolks. Yolks don't get hard and are more flavorful. Cheap beef patties with beef hearts and a little soy don't get hard either. That's how you get your dad protein. That sounds like a very nutrient dense meal. So, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Um, Mr. Bogglesworth says, believe it or not, it actually tasted like pizza that someone chewed prior to my eating, like how a mother bird feeds her baby bird. Um, that makes it sound so much worse. I mean, as gross as I was thinking it sounded, this is even grosser. But okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So Mandel says spirulina powder is a microbe-based protein. It feels good as a superfood. You feel the protein. Um, I don't know. I'm on the fence about spirulina. I had taken it back in the 90s. I don't know that I necessarily felt anything. Technically, as far as carnivore goes, it's not from the plant kingdom. It's algae, which is its own kingdom. So, it's up to you all, how you want to interpret that. Yeah, it wasn't good for me, but it might be, might work for you. So definitely something to think about. It is pretty expensive though to get, a significant amount of protein from. Um, yeah, Mr. Rogglesworth, kind of disgusting. But yeah, as Anna says, desperate times call for desperate measures. Yeah. Um, okay, so let me play the next portion that I thought was interesting before we run out of time. So hold on.
People going from standard American diet to carnivore, I don't like it. I do think the detox, the candida die off, the fungal die. I think it can be so uncomfortable. I prefer to do a gradual titration to get people so we don't go, my patients don't need to go through that keto flu stuff. And we don't need a Herxheimer reaction. We don't need die-off reactions. Why would I want to auto-intoxicate you? Why would I want to let your electrolytes become, you don't need to go through 2-3 weeks of hell. And especially, again, intestinal infection die-off can be dangerous, very, very dangerous. So most of these people who are carb addicts, they have candida overgrowth, they have gut dysbiosis. When you start starving those bugs, they go to war with you, and they're going to release biotoxins and nuclear bombs inside of your colon, which go to your brain and make you feel like you're an absolute lunatic, and you will do irrational things to get that sugar to feed them. Right?
Well, I for sure went through. So I thought that was such an interesting point. So I mean, I definitely want to encourage people to go carnivore, but I hadn't really thought about whether it would be, hugely difficult for people to go from the standard American diet to carnivore. So I would love to hear from you all, everyone who's watching. There's a lot of people watching. So if you're watching this and you can get into the chat, please come and put your answer in the chat. I'd love to know how many of you went from straight from the standard American diet to carnivore. I assume kind of people are coming to it from keto because, for a long time, like that's how people got to carnivore. It wasn't something that people jumped into straight from the standard American diet. But I'd love to know, how it went for you because I think that it's, I didn't go that way either. I did keto first for several years. And I think that, you know, I don't know. I mean, that first 6 weeks when I went into keto, that's is what we were talking about in this portion of the video, was so hard for me. So I can understand her point about not wanting to put somebody through that. But at the same time, I kind of feel like, sometimes if you're trying to do something hard, you may as well just jump right into the deep end because, if you're going to inch into like the cold water, like you might just decide, to hell with this. I can't do it, and I'm going to just do something else. So, so I don't know, if you're a beginner and you're thinking about this and you're doing the standard American diet, I wouldn't want you to decide not to do it, but sort of be cautious and be aware that it's going to be a bit tough in the beginning. So Age Gray Style says, I agreed with that, especially if you are not already making some changes. Says most people transition to keto, then carnivore. Yeah, that's what we mostly see. You did keto for 1.5 years before carnivore. Heather says I came from keto but still had a hard time for a couple of weeks. Yeah, I definitely had a hard time the first couple of weeks as well, going from keto to carnivore. I definitely think I was having more intestinal, bacteria die off. So I had, definitely my stomach was rocky in the beginning, and there was definitely a change happening there in the gut flora and whatnot. Anna says, I went keto in February, then carnivore in May, now beef, salt, and water. September 1st had the toilet issues, though through May and June, but no other side effects. Yeah. Yeah, but the toilet issues is what she's referring to. Like that's indicating a major change in the gut biome. So, but it sounds like for you, Anna, it was fairly smooth, not super challenging. Paulette, thank you for bringing that up. Yes, there's lots of people watching. Please hit that like button and subscribe as well. Let's see, Tony Cologne, my wife went paleo to keto to carnivore. Okay, awesome. April went from standard American diet to Atkins to keto to SAD to carnivore. There's a little more SAD in there, but then back to carnivore to ketovore, which is where you feel more comfortable. That's awesome to hear. So let me know if if it was hard, that second round of SAD. It sounds like you probably we're only, doing the standard American diet for a little while before going into carnivore. So so it may not have been as difficult as it would be for somebody else. Miss Jenkins, maybe a probiotic can help during the transition. Yeah, maybe. Well, that was actually that was something I was going to play here. Let me just play the next clip because I think she actually talked about that.
So
Yeah.
I like slow and go. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So I prefer to do an easy transition. Some people can jump without parachutes. I'm that kind of a
Yeah.
person. I can be really aggressive. I can tolerate high discomfort. Not everybody can do that. So you have to know the person. You have to know yourself. Um,
Yeah, so I guess I'm a person like her who can tolerate, high level of discomfort when I set my mind to it. Um, but, if my mind is not set to it, yeah, I'm just gonna certainly quit. So, it's good to think about that and to know who you are and where you are. Um,
and to help
let's
calm
see.
those cravings down, because I can usually get rid of it in much faster than 6 weeks for patients now. And
Okay.
you can use a few little plant medicines to help the liver make a lot more ketones. Because if you had more beta hydroxybutyrate really floating through your brain would have been like, oh,
Well,
I'm
I
good.
don't think I was having a lot of beef. I probably, was having big salads with some chicken in it,
Yeah,
and turkey in it. And
yeah.
also,
And you were having die off. You were having yeast die off. That's
yeah.
what was, you were definitely, the bugs were making.
So, she was just saying there that there is some, there's some herbs that she would use to help increase the amount of ketones that I'm producing, and I would presume to also help with that die off. So, I think there probably is, something that you can do in the beginning to help ease it. So, probiotics could possibly help, and there may be some other things as well. So that's something to think about, if you know somebody who's going through and they're having a hard time, it might be time to do a little bit more of a deeper dive and try to figure out if there are some things that can be helpful. And, and I mean, by the time I learned about, remember you could buy ketone salts and take them. By the time I learned about them, I was pretty decently into ketosis, so it wasn't really applicable for me at the time. But I think that in the very beginning, when I was transitioning, that might have been super, super helpful just as a stopgap, to help me until I started producing enough ketones and really transitioned and was better at, burning ketones. So that's something to think about too. Let's see, Mandel says spirulina is another protein source for my dad, 85. Hard for older people to eat enough. Whey and pea protein are bad in my experience, and spirulina was okay. I'm blessed with teeth, so eat meat. Yeah, that's that does sound great, and and yeah, getting people to eat enough can be difficult in the beginning, uh, or as they get older, rather. And says, I'm having to learn to climb through cravings and nutrient deficiency. I'm learning to eat instead of politely refrain. Yeah, excellent, excellent. That is definitely it takes some undoing to take away some of the ways that we have thought and the ways that we have operated around food. Let's see, the Chris said I started keto, but when I was doing keto, I was naturally eating primarily meat. That was last year when I started transitioning. Excellent. So glad. This is awesome to hear how many people are doing so well. Sonia, it was hard for me to go from standard American diet to carnivore because I'm a carb addict. I would get 2 weeks into carnivore and I would fall off the wagon. Yeah, I can understand, and that would really be a challenge. So I guess, like she's saying, it could just be really hard, and maybe you kind of have to do a few things to tweak things along and make it a little bit easier. But definitely getting into ketosis and staying in ketosis for a significant length of time is going to really help with the cravings. But yeah, that was hard. That was hard in the beginning. April Ray says it wasn't bad at all. It was harder from standard American diet to Atkins. Yeah, so the second time around going from SAD to carnivore probably wasn't so bad. I have to say, I feel like, that first time that you go to keto, and if you've never done it before, is super, super hard. But after that, your body kind of learns and remembers from it. So even if you go, 6 months and you're not eating keto, and then you decide to go back into keto, you don't start at that point where you were the first time you tried to get into ketosis. So it usually gets easier and easier. So, so Sonia, once you get there, you're going to be set. Like it's not going to be as hard ever again. But it is hard in the beginning. Tony says, I went to keto carnivore, now keto carnivore. Excellent. All right. Paulette, yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So, the point is not to be perfect about it. The point is to be sustainable and to be able to do this in the long term. Absolutely. So, Age Gray Style says, when I went from SAD to keto, I went ahead and suffered because the food was so much better. Agreed. Agreed. I'm right there with you. Janae says, I just plunge right in and suffer. Yeah, yeah. Although, I gotta say, I wonder if it isn't worth it to get some of those ketone salts or whatever those other products are, just as a stopgap. That might be helpful. And then for the die off in the gut biome, hopefully there are herbs like she's saying. I don't know what they are, but maybe I'm gonna do some research on that because that probably is pretty helpful to know. Says yes, a marathon. I've been carnivore for over a year and a half, but didn't learn to eat and intuit my needs. Working on those now. Excellent, great. Janae says many years ago achieved great success with clean keto. I use carnivore when I go off the rails to heal. Yes, excellent. Melanated Meat Fueled Mama, yes, you're here. I'm so excited. Okay, Hadaya says this interview was very informative. I'm keto, but moving towards carnivore, but my sweet cravings are so bad. Yeah, I totally hear you. So that was something that I talked about, I think, on Tuesday. That I think, sometimes a lot of these cravings are coming about because people are hungry and they haven't eaten enough. And our body is naturally going to, push us towards sugar because that's what we've been eating, for decades. And it is a quick source of fuel. So if you are hungry and you're not giving yourself food, your body's going to give you a craving for sweet. And so a lot of times I wonder if these cravings aren't an indication that you're hungry and you should look over how much you've eaten for the day. And now, and as we talked about earlier, in terms of how much protein you need, I mean, there's almost no way to get 160 grams of protein or 140 grams of protein and not get enough calories. But, but I don't know, you may not be getting that much. So I think it is helpful in the beginning to do some tracking, not like you have to do that forever, but just to know how much you're eating and where you are. And then, you can make decisions from there. But if I feel like if you're craving, and this is why they say in the beginning, and I know she said it in the interview as well, in the beginning, make a whole package of bacon and eat it all day long if you need to. Anytime you feel a craving, just eat some more. And that will really help. You don't want to do that forever, but in the beginning, when you're trying to get into ketosis and trying to get acclimated to the diet, that can be a really helpful tool. Let's see. The Dark Chris says, I actually tried keto 6 months before I fully committed to the lifestyle. Had a push because health problems popped up. Yeah, well, I would certainly not wish anyone to have dramatic health problems that, really force the issue. But sometimes that's the only thing that's going to work. So, I'm glad that worked for you, Dark Chris. Mandel says church fasting to anti-inflammatory, back to SAD, keto, confusing, back to SAD. Carnivores is my doing keto without trying to figure out the math. Water, meat, eggs, cheese, milk, coffee, eat deliberately. Yeah. Well, that's what I like about carnivore. It is keto without having to worry about the macros. And honestly, I really got tired of dealing with macros. And I think that for me too, that was part of it. Like, I just was like, oh, I don't want any more counting. Like, I'll count how many pounds of meat I'm eating. I'll even count how many grams of protein, but I don't want to count anything else. Um, okay, Chris, I'll call you Chris. Portia says keto for a long time, then took a break. Terrible alcoholic, wasn't really eating, then went straight carnivore after resuming keto again after 2 weeks. Yeah, well, I can think of no better diet when you are going from addiction and, and when you're, struggling with addiction, you most likely are not eating. So, or, you're eating very poorly. So you are even in greater need for a nutrient dense diet. So that's right. So yeah, glad you jumped right in. Age Gray Style says, like Dr. Berry says, eat until you're comfortably stuffed. Exactly. Um, and eat a lot of meat and use salted butter when craving sweet. Eventually they go away. Absolutely. Sonia says, I love that concept. I love bacon. Yep, definitely. Yeah, so definitely try that. And Hadiah says, how do you properly track your protein weight before or after the meat is cooked? I just do it raw, but whatever you're going to do, be consistent. So if you're going to do cooked, that's fine, but just make all your comparisons and all your measurements cooked. Um, but I think when you hear carnivores talking about how much meat they eat, they're usually talking about the raw weight. April says, does low hunger mean your body is using your fat for fuel? It can, although sometimes in the beginning of carnivore, people often complain of having no appetite or they don't want to eat any protein or they're really turned off by the idea of eating more protein. And that usually is an indication they need more fat. But if you feel comfortably satisfied and you're not hungry, yeah, your body's getting comfortably eating from your stores and it doesn't need anything else. So leave it alone. And Jessica, I was just watching that interview. Great info. Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was wonderful. Um, and then Anna says, I was like that when I saw the protein sparing modified diet. Far too much work. This beef, salt, and water challenge is supposed to be just for September. I'm not sure if I'm going to change anything October 1st. I did the same. I tried to do beef only, and then several years later, here I am. I mean, honestly, beef is my favorite, so I partly do that just because that's what I like to eat, and I don't really want to eat anything else. So yeah, so it's up to you. All right, let me hit a few more clips before we go.
which I do not, we're incredibly different from them. We have completely different digestive systems than them. Like people need to understand what a gorilla is doing inside of its intestine, what a cow can do inside their intestine. We aren't able to do. We cannot eat leaves and grass. They have bugs inside of them that convert that into medium chain fatty acids. They are eating a ketogenic diet. They're highly ketogenic, highly fat adapted. If we had that capability of chewing grass and leaves and could sustain life that way, great. We should do it. I mean, we can't. We can do nothing with that and except poop it out. And along the journey of
So I thought that was a really great point too. A lot of times people or vegetarians sort of talk about herbivores and everything, but we really the way their eating works is that there's bacteria that is eating the cellulose that they're swallowing, and that bacteria is their waste product is fatty acids, and it's the fatty acid that the cow or the animal is actually eating. And so they are, in fact, on a highly ketogenic diet, just like us, eating fat. And that is what is primarily fueling the animal. And the first time I learned that, I thought that was pretty interesting. And now I put up here the definition. So for cows and animals with a rumen, those are called ruminant animals. So, goats, cows, deer, a bison, elk, those kinds of animals, sheep as well. They have foregut. I think they have foregut fermentation, which means that their stomach has four partitions and the food kind of moves through the different chambers and it's fermenting in those chambers with that bacteria. And then you have hindgut fermenters, which are like gorillas and stuff. And so it's not in the fermentation is not happening in the stomach, it's happening in the large intestine. And they have huge stomachs because they got to have huge large intestines for all of this fermentation to happen. And so that's what she was referring to there. But the concept is the same, that they have the bacteria that is consuming the food that they're eating, and that the bacteria's waste product is the fatty acid that the animal is actually running off of. So I thought that was just a great point to put in there. So let's see. Johnny G says, "Oh, you put a link in that might be of interest to me." All right, so I'm going to look for that link. Um, and then Mandel says, "I started carnivore this spring. I've not really fought my cravings. I have learned to drink a gallon of water a day before eating. Physical job, thirst associated with sugary drinks." Yeah, definitely. Age gray style. We are not cows. Exactly. We have one stomach. They have four. Um, and April says, "I just discovered that Halle Berry has been keto for over 20 years due to having type 1 diabetes." Yeah, absolutely. And look at her. So, you could do worse. You could age, it would be a blessing to age like her. Um, yeah, my veggies are what the cow ate. Exactly. Exactly. So I'm eating, reprocessed, recycled grass in the form of a ribeye. Mandel says football game is showing a Pepsi commercial. If one were convenient, I'd sure drink it. Soda pop is going to be the recreational illicit drugs of our old folks' home. Indeed, indeed. Um, the soda was one of the things that I gave up a long time ago, and that was, I'm actually really glad I did. I just decided, as far as calories go, I wanted to eat my calories. So even though I liked, I used to drink juice, not soda, but even though I liked juice, like I was just like, if I've got to restrict calories from somewhere, like that's the easiest set of calories to go. And yeah, and so I gave that up a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, many people love to drink their sugar all day long. Yeah, Paulette, humans are not supposed to chew cuds. Yeah. Although I've been told that when I chewed gum, I looked like a cow chewing the cud. So I don't know. Perhaps it is not a good look. Okay, let me move on to the next one.
I don't, know the answer, but I think the more um, kind of libertarian and resistance defiance we can get Black and brown communities to kind of rise up and go, wait a minute, you need to be questioning them, and you need to keep getting yourself strong, because
Mm-hmm.
the first people they're coming after are you. Period. That's historic. I don't think it's going to change. So we've been in a crisis for a year and a half, and this is, to me, not the time to become a vegetarian. This is the time to double down on protein and double down on weights and double down on your training and your ability to be strong and observe and fight back, run, escape, do whatever might be coming your way. So the idea that people are doubling down, we've been on a plant, the American Dietetic Association.
So, the point that she was making here, I, totally agree with. And that was kind of why, I decided to take action and kind of try to pull together Black carnivores. I mean, I'd started my Instagram account a couple of years ago, but it wasn't until June of last year that I decided to like try to contact all the, Black carnivores that I had seen on Instagram and actually put together a Zoom call. But I think that the point, is an excellent one, that, there's tough times ahead of us. We have, a lot of economic instability. Of course, we're still dealing, with the disease and the quarantines. We have, an economy that was in trouble already in the United States, and and of course, a lot of social instability. So, with that, with all of those factors at play, the last thing that we need to do is also be sick. And, last summer when there were all the protests and everything happening, and I was looking out, it was like, I realized it's a shame. Like, many people in my age group and older really just were not in a position and in the shape to be able to go and participate in any of those, those rallies or marches or whatever those actions were. Many people are so unhealthy as to not even be able to do those things. And so I really wanted to, present the tools for people who, for whatever reason can't, make calorie counting or a plant-based diet work, to have another option to actually, reverse disease, to lose weight, and to feel better. Because we've got, there's a lot of work to do in this country. We've got a lot to do. And so, if we are going to be ready to get out there, we need to eat better. We need to secure our access to good, solid, whole food. And then we need to, secure access to food. I mean, that's the other part of the problem too that I was raising, is that, the powers that be, our government, are interested in, um, controlling, like, the means or the access to food, and making it very centralized. And with that, the idea is that it'll be cheaper and it'll be easier for everybody. But, if there's ever any problem in that pipeline, then it means nobody has access to food. And when you decentralize, you give power back to the people. You spread money around, you spread everything around, and, people have, better quality, they have better access to food and all of that. So, making sure that you connect with your local farmer is the way to go. And the last clip we already
Standard
heard,
American
so
diet
let's
is a
listen to it
plant-based
again.
diet. It's highly plant-based. It's 70 to 85% plants. It's very little protein. It's very little meat. How's that working for everybody? We're so sick. 43% or something of our country is obese. That's insane. So I don't think the answer is to double down and say, well, I'm gonna go all the way plant. That 15% of protein I was eating, I'm gonna eliminate that too. That's gonna do it, because
Yeah.
that's the part that's making me fat. Really?
Yeah, that I need to hear that again and again, because I keep forgetting that the standard American diet is a plant-based diet. The way that I ate before was mostly plant food. And, when I think about, drinking beer, or eating dipsy doodles, eating pizza, having cake, like, all of those things are mostly plants. And I now, like, can't believe, like, I haven't pushed back on people who say to me, "Oh, I'm going plant-based." It's like, what have you been eating? Those things are all plants. So, maybe you can go from more processed to less processed, but it's still plants. And, well, we all know that that meat is the way to go. Now, Mr. Bogglesworth, thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate it. It's, contributions like that that help me to be able to keep, this show and this live stream and all of the video on this channel. And I really, want to be able to do that. So I appreciate your doing that, and you are consistent with that. And I really appreciate it. So thank you. Let's see, Mandel says, I notice societies that eat plant-based diets eat a fermented version. Kimchi ain't cabbage, like we know. Yeah, a lot of societies seem to like fermented foods, so that is definitely a thing everywhere, and it seems to be, helpful for a lot of people. Melanated Meat Fueled Mama says, I felt this part in my soul. I'm doubling down on weights and meat. Yeah, absolutely. So you're gonna be ready. Yeah, you are definitely going to be ready. I'm excited to see it. Age Gray Style says, I love the history lesson. Lack of protein made us weaker. I think so. Lack of protein really, it's a powerful way to control a population. So, yeah, get everybody eating bread and sugar. And yeah, you have a lot of control. Heather G, shout out to Mr. Vogglesworth. Yeah. Mandel Harvey says, you've said you wouldn't do beef in a microwave. Suggestions for displaced persons without access to a regular stove. FEMA camp isn't a place to eat weak. Agreed, absolutely. So if all you have access to is a microwave, then yeah, absolutely, you can totally cook that way. Um, I would, I don't know, maybe some other people can put in the chat your suggestions for how to cook like a hamburger or cook ground beef in the microwave. I haven't done it, so I don't know, but yeah, of course you can cook that way. Um, Deidre Scott says, Peace and fortunes. Welcome. Great to see you. Um, Age Gray Style. Yep, processed plants. So yeah, we're already eating plant based. Janae says, sad is full of franken, corn, soy, and beet sugar, plant based. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anna says, if I had to add back a plant food, it would be kimchi and olives. Yeah. Well, Anna, if you want to, you can add those back. You don't have to go the rest of your life with not eating those things. So, I would save those things for special occasions. And, when it's your birthday, if people are like, can I bring you a cake? You say, no, I want kimchi, olives, kombucha, and, whatever other fermented thing you like. So that's what I think you should do. And Jessica says, actually, there are studies that show most vegans eat a more highly processed diet than the average standard American diet and have higher mortality rates because of it. Yeah, I totally believe that because, a lot of the tofu products that they're eating, the prepared, frozen, like, fake burgers and other stuff, all of that is very highly processed. So, absolutely. Deidre, oh my God, thank you so much for the super chat. That really means a lot to me, and I love bringing this kind of content to everybody, and I love having these conversations. I want people to feel like the carnivore diet is accessible, that that you all will have an ability to be able to do this, and if you come up upon obstacles, that you have some place to go to get answers, and that that you can do this. I know in the beginning, I just wanted a place, like-minded people that I could listen to and just remind myself I'm doing this for the right reason. There is a benefit. I am feeling better. It is worth doing, and those cupcakes are not worth it. So, I basically have tried to create the community that I was looking for and I needed, and I'm really glad that it can provide benefit for all of you. So, thank you so much for continuing to come to listen to these live streams, to follow my channel, to follow me on Instagram, and and to enjoy my content. Thank you. Deidre says, are fermented foods okay for carnivores if it doesn't cause any sensitivity? Um, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if you can eat a food and it's really not causing you a sensitivity, then, it's fine. Like, there's no hard and fast rule that says, I mean, there's no prize for being more carnivore than someone else. But if you do notice a sensitivity, then, that you have to decide whether you're willing to live with that or not. Some sensitivities are minor, and so it's like, it's okay. Some people, like for me, if I eat dairy, like I can't breathe and my asthma comes back. And so that's pretty, significant. It's not a minor problem. But for other people, maybe their nose gets a little more sniffly or, they sneeze a little more and they decide, I can live with a little more sniffles if I am able to eat cheese. So you kind of have to decide. Um, but a lot of people like fermented foods, so, go for it. I actually never really did. Like, I didn't. I don't really like kimchi. I definitely don't like sauerkraut. I, wasn't a big fan of kombucha, but other people love that stuff. So, knock yourself out. I say, if it doesn't bother you, knock yourself out. Um, Okay, so we have had an amazing conversation. I actually kind of like this format. So you tell me whether you like this, like, rewatching a little bit of the clip and then talking through it. Because not everybody has such a dense interview where there's so much information. And like I said, there were definitely some uh, paths that I wanted to follow, but I just was like, oh, we don't have enough time for that. It definitely is helpful for me to play back some of the clips so I can kind of dive deep on some of the specific stuff that she was saying. So you let me know whether you'd like that, and maybe I'll do it again. I know what next week's video is going to be, so I think I'm definitely going to do this again next week because there were a lot of things that she said that were definitely very intriguing, and that I'll definitely want to, cover again and be able to discuss with all of you. Mr. Bogglesworth, yeah, you like this format. Good, good. April Ray, this was awesome. Love the new format. Excellent. Yeah, Mr. Bogglesworth, more intimate. And I'm learning this software a little bit better. I had no idea I could do this all the time. Anna Bovin says, there's no carnivore police. We have our lives to live. We are our own experiment of one. I have always hated artificial sweeteners, but some people love them. Yeah, exactly, Anna. There's no carnivore police. And, you won't lose your card. You know, you're just, your life is your own, and we are all here to feel better. And so, whatever gets you there, that's the thing to do. Um, Age Gray Style. Now you understand the supercharger thing. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it. It means a lot. It means a lot. Heather, I'm so glad you like the format. Awesome. Janae, you like it too. Great. And Daphne, you found it to be helpful. Excellent. Johnny G, yes. Thank you. I'm so glad you liked it. Deirdre, yes, I'm glad you loved the interview. It was awesome, and the format is good. Yeah, so we'll try this again next week. Okay, everybody. So I am going to sign off now, but thank you so much. I had a great time, and I will see you all next week. And have a great week. All right. All right. Bye.